Well, hello, it's Paul from Wicked Acorn, and welcome back to part 2 of how to make a bee mosaic. So we made it this far, and I'm just going to carry on with cutting these legs here. Okay, we've done a little more of the field work here, and what I've done is I have completed into the body of the bee, so that now all I have to do is complete this area and this area and this area and so on. I have these areas that I can focus on, and I could say, okay, well, I'll complete this bit and I'll get a cup of tea. Finally, we are finished with the field work, with the parchment color. So next step is you want to inspect it and make sure that everything is where it's supposed to be. Nothing's moved out of place. So just take a look around. You don't want any bits sticking out that will give you a sharp edge, or any of your pieces have moved into a strange position. So just look it over, and everything looks pretty good. So the next step, we're going to take our packing tape and we're going to tape the whole thing over the top. We're going to flip it over and we'll put the adhesive on the board and then put the board onto the tiles. All right, we got the whole thing taped, flipped over. It was 8 parchment tiles, by the way, about 7.5, and 1 yellow, 1 black, 1 white. So just push them all down. That's it. Okay, I'm gonna go get my adhesive, and I'll show you how I mix that up. So I've just got an old milk bottle. I cut the bottom off. I use those quite a bit, but not so much anymore because we get glass bottle delivered. But occasionally we run out of milk prematurely and I have to buy one of these, and they're just handy to use because you don't have to do the cleanup. I just scrunch the stuff out and throw it in the recycling. Okay, so you don't need a lot of water because you don't need a lot of adhesive. Let me show you the adhesive I use. Now in North America, everybody calls this thinset, which you don't call here. This is, we just generically call it, all of this stuff, thinset. Thinset's a brand name, but we just generically call it that. This is Turbo Set. It's flexible tile adhesive for floors and walls. It is fast setting, 30 minutes, working time of 15 minutes, which is plenty for us. And I chose this. You can get stuff that like stays open time, we call it, for, you know, all day, but it's not really necessary for my method of working anyway. Maybe you would prefer to use one that has a more open time, which they make. This is a dark adhesive because I'm going to be using dark grout, and the reason for that is sometimes the adhesive will bleed through the grout, and it'll give you a, if you're using dark grout, the white adhesive can come through the grout and give you a stain or something. So you don't need a whole lot. That's probably too much, but better too much than too little. And I just use an old spoon. There are measurements and things on the side here, and you can do the math if you like and figure out what you need, but I just mix it by eye. So you want to get it to the consistency of what? I don't know, like a bit thicker than a cake mix, maybe. Okay, so you just pour it on so you can see the consistency. You want it a bit like that. This stuff dries. It's more of a chemical reaction than a evaporation method. Yeah, I don't think that's going to be enough. So you can get these notch trowels, different sizes, and this one I found is a bit too big and I couldn't find one like I wanted, so I just made this out of a lid of something. So you can see how it makes those ridges, and that gives the so I'll just move this over and move our mosaic back into place there. And then I'm going to flip this over and lay it on like so and feel around and make sure it's centered on there okay. Nothing sticking out too far. So all this can wipe off afterwards. You don't want to push these tiles down. You can push down the ones that are thicker. I can push these down, but you don't really want to push the others down, the ones that are thinner, because we're going to rely on the tape to keep that all nice and smooth. So as you can see, some of the grout, as we spoke about way back at the beginning, the grout has squeezed through, or sorry, the adhesive has squeezed through. And that's going to make the grout fail and not look good. I think it's sufficiently dried. Fingers crossed. This is the part I don't like doing, because you can pull the tiles off. It's not that big a deal if you do, but it just sets you back. Then you have to re-glue the tile and wait for the tile the glue to dry, the adhesive to dry, etc. It just sets you back. So far, so good. All right, bonus. And as most people have asked, so what do you just smash up the tiles and stick them on? Yeah, something like that. So it's just a matter of going along and scraping out this adhesive. All right, so we've got the grout adhesive dug out. Now I'm just gonna get some of this stuff off the surface here. It's just one of those scrubby sponges. Okay, final step. Well, near about's the final step. This is our grout. Has 2 to 3 hours or something. Again, more of our milk jugs, and you don't need a lot of water again. Just kind of judge what you need. More about consistency, mixing up the proper consistency. So we'll just mix this in. As I said, get the right consistency we want so that it doesn't stick to the spoon anymore. Like that. How about that? So it's a little bit thicker than the adhesive we mixed up. don't think I have enough here. I'm going to need to mix up a bit more. But this stuff has much more open time than the adhesive. So you will need one of these. And I like this one, even though I don't use the tooth side of it. So you just squeeze it in. And you go left and you go right. You can see this tile's a little bit low here. See how it's completely filling it in, but that's not a big deal. And you just go round and round, squeezing it into the tile. Now the first few of these that I made, I actually used a light grout. And one day I decided I would try a darker one just to see. And the first one I did with the darker grout, I didn't like it at all. I think the grout I used was a bit too dark, and I find this is the best for this particular mosaic. At least it's what I like. Now you probably should have gloves to do this bit, but I'm going to do it without gloves. So you just smear it on the edge. And you don't want it too thick, and you don't want it too thin. So I will leave it there now. It looks a little hazy, and that's fine. Anybody that does proper tiling knows this. You just let that dry and come back and wipe it off again. So I will leave this now for about a half hour, and I'll come back and clean it again. Okay, our grout has dried, or it's hazed over enough. So I'm just going to use my hand. I think my hand's probably about at least 100 grit. So you could just wipe off that haze with your hand. You could use a cloth or a sponge or whatever you like. I don't like to use too much water because it, as I was saying, it washes the grout out, and I don't like that. It takes away from the smoothness of it. Then around the edge. Now I'll show you the edge. Now the edge can be a little humpy bumpy like that, you see there. But I'll just take that off with my hand. Again, I don't like to use water. I have in the past, but I found this to be a better way to do it dry. Because when you use water, it takes off too much. And so I will just let that harden overnight, and then tomorrow we'll put it in the table. Hopefully I'll get over to pick up a table, because I don't make the table for the interior one. There's a nice table you can get from IKEA that suits it quite nicely. So hopefully I'll be able to show you that. So we'll just leave that as is, and hopefully we'll get a shot of it in the table tomorrow. Beauty.